Hello friends, in last lecture we have discussed about what is importance of water, what is fresh water, from where fresh water is found, why water is important, right? Also we have discussed that what is called water pollution, how our water is polluted. In that we have discussed about three main points: the addition of undesirable substance. If the undesirable substance is added into water, that is water pollution. If the desirable substance is removed from the water, that will be also considered as water pollution. And if there is if there is a change in temperature, if the range of temperature is changed suddenly, so that is also considered as a water pollution, because the organisms which lives in water, the aquatic organisms, will be not able to survive against this type of change in temperature, right? So that is also considered as water pollution. Today we are going to discuss about how soil is formed. Means we will discuss about formation of soil, right? How soil is formed, why soil is important, right? So let's start. As we know that soil, it is also the factor which decides diversity at that particular area, right? Because we know that the diversity, it is dependent on availability of water, right? The fertility of soil. So soil is the factor which decides the diversity of life in that particular area. But how this soil is formed, right? So for that, understand it, what is soil, how it is formed, right? Is there any different terms related to soil? So let's study. First of all, we have to understand that what is called crust. See, what is called crust? So the outermost layer of our earth, the outermost layer of our surface of earth is called crust, right? So in 1 marks it can be asked that what is called crust. So the outermost layer of the earth, that is considered as crust. And we know that the minerals which is found in this crust, right? The outermost layer of the earth, that is called crust. And here the mineral which is found, that minerals are very important. The minerals which is found in this crust, it is very important for life forms. Okay, now this mineral which is very important for life forms, it will be not delivered to the organism. See, it's very important for life, but it may not be delivered if this mineral is in huge rocks. If this mineral is in form of huge rocks, it is not convenient that the organism will obtain this mineral from the huge rocks, right? So this huge rocks, it must be converted into soil. Now let's see how it is converted. Okay, so this huge rocks, okay, for thousands and millions of years, after a very long period of time, this rocks, it broke it is broken down by different type of physical, different type of chemical, and some different type of physical, chemical, and some biological processes. Repeating again, the crust, it is the outermost layer of our earth. Mineral which is present in this crust, it is very necessary for the life form, but it is not possible that if it is in form of huge rocks, it is in huge rocks, so it is not going to deliver to the organisms. So it is necessary to break down these huge rocks into soil. Thousands and millions years, from thousands and million years, this huge rocks are broken down by some physical changes, by some chemical changes, and by some biological changes, biological processes. Now let's see that how this soil is formed, which are the factors which possess which is necessary for this formation of soil. So if we discuss over it, what are the factors, right, which is dependent to make soil? So there will be different factors. Out of that, the first factor is sun, the second factor is water, the third factor is wind, and the fourth factor is living organisms. These four factors are responsible for soil formation. Now let us discuss this in detail. Let's start from the first one, that is sun. How sun is responsible for formation of soil? Okay, first of all, we know that during daytime, what will happen? During daytime, due to the sun, rocks will get heated, right? So as it get heated, so we know that if it will heated, it is going to get expand. At daytime, due to the sun, the rock, it will get heated, so it will get expand. On other hand, at night time, it will be cooled down, right? So it will try to get opposite. In heat it is expanding, right? So in cool time it is going to get contrast. But as we know that due to this change in day and night, not every part of the rock is going to get contrast and it is going to get expand. So all parts of the rock do not expand and contracts, right? So simple. Due to this, what will happen? It is first at daytime it is going to get expand, at night time it is going to get contrast. But this expansion and contraction rate of the rock, if it is not same, so due to this there will be formation of cracks, and due to this formation of cracks, this huge rocks, it will converted into smaller pieces, right? So this way sun is responsible in formation of soil. At daytime it will increase the temperature, so rock will try to get expand. At night time the temperature will get decreased, so it is going to get contrast. So this expansion rate and contraction rate, again the expansion rate and the contraction rate, it is not similar, so it will form a crack in the rock, and from that crack the huge rocks is going to get divided, it is going to get broken into small pieces. Now let's see the another factor, which is water. How water is responsible for formation of soil. So our another factor is water. How water is responsible for formation of soil, right? See, this water, it is responsible in two ways. Okay, first way is that water, it will get into cracks which is created in the rocks, right? And later on it will get freezes. Okay, now as the water which get into the cracks of rock, after some times that it's going to get freeze, right? And as it freeze, it widen the cracks will get widened, right? Because remember, the rock, it has the cracks, in that water will get rushing. As that water is getting freeze, right? So what will happen, slowly the cracks, it will try to become wide, it is going to become wide, right? So it will get widened, and due to this there will be huge rocks converted into small particles, means soil. Okay, now let's check what is the another factor for it. The second way, this is the first way. In second way, that how it is responsible. See, we can say that in second way, flow of water, right? So this flowing of water, it wears away the hard rocks. Flow of water, it wears away the hard rock, right? And it often carries the rock and the small pieces, the small particles of rock into downstream. Okay, so in second, the flowing water, it will wear down, right? Due to the flowing water, the rock and the small particles of it, it is going to get downstream, it is going to get transported, right? This rock, during this process, the rocks, it rub against other rock. So see, flowing of water, a flow of water, right? When the water is flowing, so in that cases, the particles of rock during that flow, it is going to rub each other, and during this process of rubbing against each other, they will get separated, they will break down into small particles, right? So the rocks, when they are rubbed against each other, if we think like this, that at a downstream we are having rock, and with the flow of water, if the another particles of rock, it's rubbed against the rock which is kept there, right? So it will convert it into small particles, and we know it's a simple thing that the rubbing process of rock, as you rub it manually, right? Take two rock and just rub it manually, you will see that that rock, it is going to get converted into smaller particles. So that is soil. So we are doing this manually, but this also happens naturally with water, right? You have seen that when any of river, it flows with more velocity, it flows with a more speed. So in that cases, this rubbing of rocks take place, and which result into smaller and smaller particles, that is considered as our soil, right? So water is responsible in this two way. In first, that water will enter into the crack of rock, it will get freeze, so the gap, so the crack will become widened, and that rock is going to get converted into soil. And the second is the flowing water, it breaks down the rock into soil by rubbing against each other, right? So it will result it into very smaller and smaller particles, and the water then take this particle along with it and deposit to the other part, right? So this way soil is formed by water. Now let's see the another factor, that is wind. Now how wind is responsible for formation of soil. So simple, we know that due to this wind, similarly to water, right? With the help of water, the rocks rubbed against each other. So with the wind also, it will be similar to the water, right? So here also, strong wind, it erode rocks down by the process of rubbing, right? And also it carries sand from one place to another, right? So rubbing process is done by water also, and rubbing process is done by wind also. Now the another most important factor which is responsible for formation of soil, that is living organisms. Now let's see how these living organisms are responsible for formation of soil. It's very interesting and very easy also. So first of all, these living organisms, they just spend their life on this type of rocks. Okay, try to understand. Let's take example of lichen. See, this lichen, this is a organism who always grows on surface of rock, right? Lichen always grows on surface of rock. During its growth, it releases certain type of substances, right? This substances, what this substance do? It grows on the surface of rock, and during its growth it secretes different type of substances. This substances, it converts the rock surface into powder form. It breaks down that rock surface into powder form. So this way, whole of the rock, it is converted into soil, right? It will form a thin layer over the surface, and that thin layer, it will settle down in form of soil, right? Some other plants, if we talk about some different organisms, so some other plants like moss, right, they are able to grow on this type of surface, and they cause the rock to break down further. So these moss are able to break down rock, right? Sometimes roots of big trees are also responsible, right, to widen the crack of the rock and to break it down. So again, living organisms are also responsible in formation of soil. Lichen, it grows on the surface of rock. During its growth, it secretes different type of chemical, different type of substances. Due to that substances, what will happen? The surface of rock, right, it will become in a powder form. It will give you a layer of the soil. Almost we can say that the surface on which it is present, that surface of rock, it is going to get converted in of soil, means the layer down in soil, right? So the living organism is also responsible for formations of soil. Now let's discuss about some important points which is related to this topic of soil formation and erosion of soil. Okay, first of all, it's clear in our mind that soil is one type of mixture which contains different type of particles of rock, right, of different sizes. It also contains, so it's a mixture of rocks of different sizes. This mixture, it also contains Decayed living organisms. Decayed living organisms means dead living organisms, right? And generally this dead living organisms, they are known as humus. In addition to that, this soil, it also contains different type of microorganisms, right? And the type and the quality of soil, it is dependent on this amount of humus and amount of microorganisms, right? Out of that, this humus, it's most important factor in deciding the structure of soil. It's most important factor in deciding the structure of soil. Why? Because if more humus is present there, right? So due to that, the structure, it will cause more and more porous, and as it is more porous, so it will allow water and air to penetrate deep underground, right? So humus is one of the important factor to decide the structure of soil, because it makes our soil porous, and as it is porous, so water and air will get deeply penetrate into the soil. The mineral nutrients that are found in particular soil, it depends on rock and how that rocks are formed, right? So the minerals which is present, it is dependent on from which type of rock the soil is formed. Nutrient content, it is dependent on the rock. So we can say that nutrients which is present in soil, it is dependent on rocks from which it is present, right? So the amount of humus and the depth of the soil are the important factor which will decide that which type of plants, right? Due to the nutrients and due to the humus, we will used to know that which type of plants are able to grow on particular line, right? So due to this, it can happen. Now let's understand one more important term related to this, and that is called topsoil. Now what is meaning of this topsoil? Let's understand. Okay, first of all, we will write its definition. The topmost layer of the soil that contains humus and living organisms to addition to the soil particles is called topsoil. It's important. Topsoil, it's a layer of the soil which contains humus and living organism, and also it contains some nutrients, right? So the layer of soil which contains humus and living organism, that is called topsoil. And the quality of the topsoil, it is the important factor to decide the biodiversity in that area, right? So according to topsoil, we can know that what is the biodiversity, which type of plants can grow there, which type of microorganisms are present, right? So the biodiversity of that particular area, it is decided by soil, and in soil it is decided by topsoil. Okay, our modern farming, right, which we do organic farming and the modern farming, practice involve in the use of large amount of fertilizers and pesticides. We know that for getting more and more yield, right, more and more farming yield, we are using more and more in modern farming. We are using more and more pesticides and fertilizers. So due to this using of fertilizers and pesticides, right, and if it is used for a long time, so what will happen, it can destroy, due to this pesticides and fertilizers, it can destroy the structure, it may destroy the structure of soil. How it will destroy? Because due to this pesticides and fertilizers, the microorganisms and some of the important organisms like earthworms and all, right, it is get affected. Some microorganisms and the organisms like earthworm, right, which makes our land, which makes our quality of soil, right, so as it will affect to it, so the quality of soil will also get affected, right. So if it happens continuously, so in that case our fertile soil, it will become barren soil, right. So the fertility of the soil, it will get destroyed if we are using more and more fertilizers and we are using more and more pesticides. Okay, so this way we are polluting our soil. So let us now understand that how the soil erosion is done. First, as we discussed, that by using fertilizers and pesticides, it affects to our microorganisms and also the organisms like earthworm, right. So second, removal of useful components, right. If the important components from the soil, it is removed out, right, so due to this removal of useful components also, we will be not able, right, to maintain the quality of soil, and that will be resulted into soil pollution, that will be resulted into land pollution, right. So it will affect the fertility of the soil and kill the diversity of the organism, which is called soil pollution. So if we want to give a definition of soil pollution, we can give it like this: soil pollution. So let's try to define it. What is called soil pollution, right? So a removal of useful components from the soil and removing the useful components from the soil and addition of other substances. We remove the important component, the useful components from the soil, and we add some other substances, which now that substances which adversely affect the fertility of the soil and kill the diversity of organisms that live in it is called soil pollution. So generally in soil pollution we are removing the useful components and we are adding such type of components which are harmful, right, which affects the fertility of the soil and which kills the diversity of that particular area, right? So this is called soil pollution or it's called soil erosion, right? We know that the upper layer of the soil, to wash it out, that is called soil erosion, and it is done by wind also, it is done by water also, by growing more trees. Okay, by growing more trees we can prevent it. Okay, so some of the important points about that. So the roots of plants have an important role in preventing, it has important role in preventing soil erosion, right? First of all, soil erosion means removing of the fertile layer of the soil, that is called soil erosion, right? The root of the plants, it will bind up the layer of soil, right? So it will not allow the wind or the flowing water to remove the fertile layer of soil, right? So the roots, it will play an important role in preventing the soil erosion. The deforestation which is done, deforestation means cutting of forest, right, removing of forest from the earth. So by this deforestation process that is happening all over the world, we are not only destroying the biodiversity, it will also lead us to soil erosion, because as we know that deforestation means plants will be cut, right, there will be no forest. So as there is no forest, so the upper layer of that soil, it will be washed out very easily by wind or by rain, right, by water. Topsoil, it will convert it into barren soil, right, during this soil erosion process. Okay, and this generally happens in the hilly area or on the mountainous regions very acceleratedly, right? So see, at this type of hilly areas or mountain regions, this soil erosion is one of the most important problem. This process of soil erosion is very difficult to get reversed, right? Vegetation cover over the ground has a role to play in the percolation of water into deeper layers also, right? So simple, in soil pollution we are adding harmful substances, also in soil erosion we are uh, removing the upper layer, the fertile layer of the soil, that is called soil erosion. Soil erosion is prevented only and only by more trees, because the root, they bind out the soil. So as the soil particles are binded, wind or water will not allow it to flow off, right? But with the deforestation which we are doing, soil erosion is increasing day by day. So that's our humble duty to maintain the level of trees on our planet.